literally 2 days after Donald Trump shocked the world by saying he wants to keep the 213,000 that Bitcoin that America has in its reserves as a strategic stockpile, a legislator from Hong Kong, a city-state controlled by China, came out and said this legislator is advocating for Hong Kong to do the same and keep Bitcoin in its financial reserves. Is this the beginning of nation-state FOMO? Let's not forget, literally days ago, Russia came out, introduced a new bill where they said they're legalizing and accepting Bitcoin as use for international trade. Well, let's begin exploring why we're seeing major superpowers try to abandon the US dollar and the petrodollar system now. And why are they doing it now? On the 31st of July, 2024. There could be some interesting time in there, but let's start breaking down this story first. And let's kind of explain what happened literally days ago, okay? Very recently. Well, yesterday, it happened 1 day ago. This article came out. So who was it? Johnny NG is a member of Hong Kong's Legislative Council, and he urged the city-state to explore the possibility of including Bitcoin in its strategic reserves. He went to social media and he posted about how Bitcoin is becoming more and more accepted globally, and he even called it by name as digital gold. And he says as long as it complies with regulations, incorporating Bitcoin into the financial reserves is quote unquote considering. Why it is happening now. So Hong Kong follows the US lead. So again, 2 days ago, Donald Trump said he wants to include Bitcoin in the strategic stockpile of America. But Donald Trump wasn't the only major US politician to announce something similar. We can obviously see here, Cynthia Lummis also says that she wants the Treasury to acquire 1 million Bitcoin if elected. That's her strategic Bitcoin reserve plan. She would direct the Treasury to go out there and buy 1 million Bitcoin. It's a lot of Bitcoin. That's 5% of the supply of Bitcoin. That would make the US Treasury the largest holder of Bitcoin around the world. Satoshi Nakamoto, he mined those 1 million coins, but the US Treasury says, we want to be bigger than Satoshi. But it wasn't only Cynthia Lummis who had some really bold plans for Bitcoin at the Bitcoin conference. We can also see here that RFK came out and he said, yeah, you know what? If I'm elected, I would direct the Treasury to buy 550 Bitcoin a day until the US is squatting on 4 million coins, a very large chunk of the Bitcoin supply. And if you run the numbers, that would take about 20 years for America to do that. That's a lot of daily DCA in 550 Bitcoin a day. We do know that only 450 Bitcoin are mined every single day. So it looks as if as Bitcoin breaches the mainstream in America, other nations seem to be paying attention. So again, we have Hong Kong, and that's interesting. Don't get me wrong. Hong Kong is very interesting. We've speculated at length of why we need to be paying very close attention to Hong Kong, because obviously whatever Hong Kong does, that means that China is welcoming it. Okay, so NG says, the Hong Kong legislator says that I will discuss the feasibility and opportunities of including Bitcoin in financial reserves with the different stakeholders in Hong Kong. And he will report the situation to everyone in a timely manner. Very, very, very interesting. We all know, unlike its neighboring Chinese mainland's broader crackdown on crypto, Hong Kong rolled out the welcome mat for crypto firms last year. In June 2023, Hong Kong officially started its crypto licensing regime for crypto platforms, allowing licensed exchanges to offer retail trading. Okay, we broke this story when it happened, guys. Hong Kong came out and they said, we want to be the global Bitcoin hub of the world. Okay, and they did that with Beijing's blessing. Remember that Bloomberg article we talked about earlier in the year? Beijing gave Hong Kong its blessing to become the global crypto hub. Okay, so it's really interesting, especially when we start piecing these dots together about China. But before we dive down that China rabbit hole a little bit further, I want to show you guys literally what happened today, okay? I covered this in a live stream earlier in today, and I think it's very related to what is going on today. Russia has approved Bitcoin and crypto for the use of international trade to evade sanctions. We can see that this new bill is going to be put into effect in Q3 this year. The law, which is anticipated to come into effect in September, is designed to address delays in international payments, especially with major trading partners like China, India, and the UAE. Now, we're not going to break down this whole story because we talked about it earlier, but literally today, El Salvador came out and they said, yeah, you know what, Russia, we like the idea of doing international trade with Bitcoin with you. Very interesting timing. This has all happened in the past 48 hours. So again, all of this is happening so quickly. And I think we really need to keep an eye on what is happening, because not only are we seeing all of these speculations about Bitcoin in the higher parts of government, but the higher parts of government, especially in China, are about to be adding fuel to the fire, so to say, of Bitcoin adoption. We're going to be looking at the monetary policy shifts happening in China and what that means for Bitcoin in a moment. But we can also see retail is picking up interest. We can see in China, Google search trends for Bitcoin are headed back up to a local high, a local 12-month high. But if you have a look at Bitcoin searches in America, America looks to be lagging a little bit. And again, this includes the recent spike of the interest that happened when Donald Trump, Cynthia Lummis, and RFK all talked very positively about Bitcoin at the Bitcoin conference. There's a little bit of retail interest. Obviously, there's more than 20,000 people at the Bitcoin conference. It's one of the largest financial conferences in the entire world. But what's happening in China and Hong Kong is surpassing what's happening in America. There seems to be even more interest, so to say, in what is happening in these countries. Now, we know that China kind of began the Bitcoin bull market in, let's say, 2019, when there was rumors of President Xi welcoming Bitcoin, welcoming the asset class, and Bitcoin saw a 30% pump in one day when that happened, okay? So we know China is a pretty significant player in Bitcoin, but they're also a pretty significant player in the global economy. We know that China has the second largest economy around the world. There's more than 1 billion Chinese people around the world. They've got a lot of wealth. They're trying to get that wealth out of China, okay? We also showed you guys an article earlier in the year showing why the retail citizens are flocking to store their wealth in Bitcoin, as their largest asset class in the country, the real estate market, is crumbling. Okay, 70% of the Chinese citizens' wealth is stored in their real estate market. And now that that's crumbling, the people are looking for an escape. They're looking for someone else to put their money. Okay, and right now, even when we look at the macro scale or what the government is doing, we can see that we look to be entering a new cycle of liquidity for the People's Bank of China. It looks like right now they are beginning to turn on the spigots. And as you can see, this kind of cycles of liquidity do kind of go through these cycles every couple of years. And right now we look to be beginning the uptrend in one of these cycles. And when you zoom out even broader and you look globally, you can also see very clearly that we are beginning the upswing of this global liquidity cycle. China just cut interest rates by 25 basis points. The central bank easing cycle has begun. That's what Thomas says in this tweet here. And as you can see, typically you see 12 to 18 months of expanding liquidity and liquidity increasing, which again could mean some very, very, very positive things for Bitcoin. Now think about the timing of all of these announcements. Russia, El Salvador, China, America, all kind of talking about Bitcoin this week. And this is coming at the same time that we're seeing more and more liquidity slowly pumped into the system. Could this be really setting up the perfect storm for Bitcoin? Most people know that Bitcoin rallies historically very explosively after its halving cycles. The halving happened about 3 months ago. We're going to discuss that in a moment. But before we discuss that, I wanted to give a massive shout out to our lead sponsor, Rhino Bitcoin. So Rhino is a Bitcoin banking solution that combines traditional financial services with the power of Bitcoin. Created by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners, Rhino offers a range of services. You can buy Bitcoin on Rhino, you can sell Bitcoin on Rhino, you can withdraw straight to cold storage, and you can even pay other people using the Lightning Network. What's really cool is you can purchase gift cards with Satoshis at the click of the button, and you can even connect to Casa for multi-signature security, okay? And very soon, you're going to be able to pay bills, borrow money, and save Bitcoin for your retirement. So this really positions Rhino to be the all-in-one, seamless, secure Bitcoin application. So if you want to check out Rhino, visit rhinobitcoin.com today to download Rhino and experience the future of Bitcoin banking. Like, a lot of people want to know, what does a Bitcoin standard look like in the future? How is a Bitcoin standard even going to work? How are you going to borrow against your Bitcoin? Well, I think Rhino is really working towards bridging the gap to a Bitcoin standard. So they've got a really cool little animation on their website. Highly recommend you check out everything Rhino is doing. They've got super sleek UX, and we're thrilled to be partnering up with Rhino and showing you guys what they're doing. So let's talk about the bigger picture of China, Russia, America, El Salvador, even talking about potentially ditching the BRICS, and what this means for the next global reserve currency, a new geopolitical force. Before we get there, I want to clue in anyone who might have missed the earlier live stream I did on my personal channel. If you didn't see it, you can go watch the whole thing. But if you want the quick TLDR synopsis of what is happening in El Salvador today, following the Russian announcement of them accepting Bitcoin for legal tender, and its use in international trade, we could see El Salvador is rumored to be potentially looking at applying to become a part of the BRICS countries. They're fed up. So additionally, a Russian diplomat said the country was interested in joining the BRICS bloc. This is El Salvador. Specifically, he said they were exploring the possibility of joining BRICS in the near future. However, they have not yet applied for the membership. So we do know that there's a lot of countries applying to become a part of the BRICS. I believe there's over 60 right now in 2024. I believe there's well over, okay, so I found one website that says there's 36, but I know there's many more websites than that, all wanting to become a part of the BRICS. We see this article here, 36 countries have already formally applied to join the BRICS alliance in 2024. Think about how significant that is for a moment. The BRICS was created well over a decade ago. I believe it was 2008 or 2009, just after that GFC, global financial crisis. And for a very long time, the BRICS was just the BRICS. It was Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and there was not a lot of interest in joining the BRICS. But now all of a sudden, there's a lot of other countries like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Turkey. A lot of these other countries have already joined the BRICS, and there's many more applying to become a part of the BRICS. So the fact that there are rumors of El Salvador at least being interested in doing the same should cause us to really start paying attention, because I think it's most interesting that El Salvador right now, they're a dual currency country. That's a little bit of a tongue twister. They use Bitcoin and the US dollar. So if they're posturing as if they want to get away from the US dollar and the petrodollar standard and join the BRICS countries, I think they're one of the countries we need to be paying closest attention to. Now, I really like this article here that also literally came out 2 days ago. Everybody's talking about how Bitcoin could potentially be the next reserve currency. And all of this talk about it being a strategic reserve has got a lot of people talking about the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is the changing world order. So this is the thesis put out there by Ray Dalio. Now, for those who haven't read it, it's a hell of a book. It's literally about this thick. It's massive. I had to throw it out. I had to leave it with a friend as I escaped Australia because it's so big and heavy. I had to leave a lot of my books in Australia. But essentially, Dalio looked at the past 500 years of history. He studied the 10 biggest empires that have gone through a 250-year cycle of rising and declining. And he said, look, America's in this declining phase. We're going to watch more and more superpowers like China come up to challenge America, the declining empire. And these rising empires are eventually going to take over this global reserve currency. But obviously, this time is a little bit different because over the past 500 years, whoever has been the dominant empire has also held the global reserve currency. So think about it. Who was the dominant empire before the US? The US has held the global reserve currency for the past 100 years. Well, that was, of course, Britain. If I were to actually show you guys a little bit of a visual of the charts and what I'm talking about, you guys will be able to see that essentially every 100 years, this global reserve currency shifts and it changes hands. So we can see here very, very clearly that the Florentine florin was the major reserve currency between the 1200s and the 1300s. But then here you can see the Spanish real was the reserve currency for well over 100 years here in the 1500s and the 1600s. Then we had the Dutch guilder, we had the British sterling, the British pound, and then the US dollar. Okay, so what's interesting about this potential transition is the next global reserve currency, if it's Bitcoin, could be the first in a long time where it's actually a neutral reserve currency. It's not controlled by anyone. Now that could be really interesting, and that could have some serious ramifications for geopolitics all around the world and for how power is distributed and, let's just say, decentralized amongst different citizens, but also amongst individuals versus governments and citizens. So we can see here, I really like this description here. One of the primary advantages of Bitcoin as a reserve currency is, of course, its scarcity. Nobody can control Bitcoin's supply. With a fixed supply cap of 21 million coins, the value of Bitcoin is not subject to inflationary pressures, which erode the purchasing power of traditional currencies. This inherent value stability is appealing to nations seeking a reliable store of wealth and medium of exchange. Bitcoin's decentralized nature also eliminates the need for intermediaries like central banks or governments, rendering it less susceptible to political manipulation. Whilst the US dollar became the de facto reserve currency of the world following the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944, Bitcoin can take its place in an increasingly complex, multipolar world, but only time will tell. I thought that was a really interesting article that really talks about the broader implications of what is going on with Bitcoin and what could potentially be coming next. I would love your guys' thoughts. Let me know in the comments what you think is coming next. Johnny Midas is in the live chat. He's never missed a live stream. He's on the earlier live stream as well on my personal channel. Thank you for the kind words, Jacob. I appreciate that. I really love making the Bitcoin videos. Afternoon to everyone. Infinity divided by 21 million. TikTok next block. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. Bitcoin continues producing blocks. It doesn't care what national leaders all around the world are saying about Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't care what nation state is mining Bitcoin. At the end of the day, Bitcoin is just this immutable thing that continues doing what Bitcoin is going to do. Okay? But, while we're talking about the potential future of Bitcoin and where Bitcoin's going to go, I think somebody who has, let's say, one of the most interesting ideas of where Bitcoin is going to go is Michael Saylor. If you missed our recent interview with Michael Saylor, where he predicted Bitcoin will be worth hundreds of trillions of dollars, and it will still be performing better than anything else, highly recommend you check out that video. I think that was an in-person interview. It's one of our first in-person interviews in a long time. I've popped a link to that video here that was done here on the channel in the live chat. So I'd encourage you guys to check it out. And just quickly before we round this thing out, is Solana fully decentralized like Bitcoin? No, nothing is fully decentralized like Bitcoin. Solana, from memory, has had 12 controlled outages where the owners of Solana just say, okay, we got a bug. We need to halt it. We need to fix it. We need to turn the blockchain off. That's never happened in Bitcoin. Even Ethereum continues to have monetary policy changes all the time. So there is no second best, like Michael Saylor says in our interview. So I'd encourage you guys to check out that interview. Link down below. And with all that said, thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. Wishing you a happy Wednesday.